folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am really glad you decided to join me here today. If we've never met, welcome aboard. If you want to learn more about what we're doing here at the Gardeners Workshop, you can head over to thegardenersworkshop.com to learn about our online virtual learning center, which includes tons of resources, y'all, for growing cut flowers, whether you're a home gardener or a farmer. We have online courses to help you start a business, build a business, or to just have a little cutting garden out in your backyard. Seed starting, just so many opportunities, as well as, y'all, I have built an online garden shop that features the tools, seeds, and supplies that I also use and the same seeds that I grow from here on my farm. So you can learn all about us over there. I encourage you to sign up for my weekly farm news, where you basically get a page of headliners from the business. And you can sign up for that over at thegardenersworkshop.com. So friends, I am really pleased to bring this conversation to you today. Jennie Love of Lovin' Fresh Flowers has become a really good friend of mine for business reasons, as well as we're kind of kindred spirits in a lot of different ways. And if you don't know Jennie, so Jennie is located in Philadelphia, and her farm is urban, kind of like mine. And Jennie is one of the pioneer Farmer-Florist. She is one of the ones that just blazed the trail to this unique opportunity of actually growing the flowers and doing wedding events with them. And that's a whole nother conversation, but so she has been a part of that industry. She was named as one of Martha Stewart's top farmer florist, which just put her right out there in the limelight. And, you know, back when she first began, as we talk about in the podcast, she felt like using her flowers that she grew in weddings and events was really the most profitable way to earn a living, because, you know, you also have to know that Jennie, this is her livelihood. Everything flower farming, all the different things that she's doing, that she, in the beginning, felt like that doing weddings with her flowers that she grew was the most profitable. Well, she has gone full circle now, that to compare dollar for dollar, when you're comparing percentages, not volume of money, that hands down, doing workshops is the most profitable thing that you can do. So I'm going to not carry on here much anymore. I'm going to let you listen to our, it's not even an interview. It was like one of our kind of chats that we had about doing workshops, who should do a workshop, just some great tips and foods for thought. Excuse me. And I just love that I was able to convince, literally, Jennie to do an online on-demand course about making workshops work for you, which is all about the backside, y'all. It's about the business side of doing workshops. So let's take a listen to what Jennie and I talked about. All right, friends, I am here with someone that I consider to be a lifelong in flower farming, very, very good friend, Jennie Love. Hi, Jennie.
Hi, Lisa. It's always fun to talk to you.
Jennie and I have been accused of being sisters back before I had gray hair, you know, but
I'm getting my gray hair now. So don't worry, I'll catch up. We'll be good. Just give me another 2 years.
But Jennie and I have a lot more in common than just similar face shapes. We are both kind of no bones, nitty gritty, share it like it is, people, which doesn't rub everybody right, but
Mm.
the people that really want the pathway to do perhaps something that we're teaching about, really find that we're easy to talk to and listen to and learn from. So I invited Jennie here today because I consider her just one of the gurus on doing in-person workshops, both destination, maybe not at your farm, and those on your farm. And so that's what I've invited here today for she and I to kind of talk. I'm going to pick her brain, y'all. So Jennie, don't you feel like workshops are actually ramping up more now than ever before?
Oh, yeah. Here in 2022, as a lot of the COVID restrictions ease up, particularly I'm in Philadelphia and my farm is Love and Fresh Flowers, and I've taught workshops for over 10 years now. And there's always been a demand for them, but I've noticed this sort of rabid, um, I don't know, this energy that is kind of out of control from people who are really jonesing to sign up for our workshops, because I have a policy where we don't start taking reservations for workshops until 30 days before a given workshop date. But man, every single day the inbox has at least 2 or 3 messages about, I really want to sign up for this class in like June. It's like, not yet, hold your horses. So it's out of control for 2 reasons. And it's great that it's out of control because it's such an opportunity for us as flower farmers to have a really profitable enterprise on our farms. But it is both people anxious because they felt cooped up from COVID restrictions and they're eager to reconnect with their community, which is a huge part of workshops, is creating a sense of community. And then also there's a whole new generation of flower enthusiasts now that bubbled up through COVID, when there were people that had just felt cooped up in their houses. And now they really want to get their hands on flowers and work with that.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said nails it. And people are driven to inbox you because people post workshops and they're sold out in minutes. Because the thing about in person is you're not going to have like an online course where there's unlimited numbers of people, right? There is a set number of seats,
Right.
for whatever, it is that you're doing. And so I think the rabidness that you just mentioned is
It
really
really is.
is a way to really explain that. So let's just talk about some of the ins and outs of workshops. And so for me, I think one of the things that drew me, I mean, you and I have been doing them for a long time.
Yeah.
I did boot camps. I've done hour classes, all day classes, 2 or 3 day classes. And so we found that they were just, first off, we're going to talk about the hiccups too, the problems that you face when you do that. But
Right.
what I think you and I found, and people are discovering today, that this is really a profitable addition to
Oh,
a
yeah.
farm, right? I mean, let's just talk about that for a minute. I don't want to talk about pricing
Mm.
necessarily, but
hmm
about that this is really a great way to boost your farm's bottom line after all that hard work you've done, right?
It's true. So my farm, I started flower farming commercially in 2008, and initially went into being a wedding florist, a farmer-florist, one of the originals, and thought that weddings would be the most profitable approach for my small urban farm. I needed the highest dollar for every stem to make being an urban farm in the heart of Philadelphia really manageable. And so I focused my business a lot on weddings, a little bit unexpectedly. I did them to kind of use up some of the extra weekends that I had, so to speak. I wanted to always have an event, and if I didn't have a wedding booked, we would do a workshop. But what I realized after learning to price properly, so that is one of the things that maybe we won't talk about pricing per se in this podcast, but pricing really is important to actually having a profitable workshop enterprise at your farm. But once you learn to price profitably, I can say now with confidence after all this time that workshops are actually more profitable dollar for dollar than weddings are, because of the sort of the cost of goods sold going into them, so to speak, in terms of time and labor and staffing and all of that stuff, workshops are actually more profitable. And because of that, I have ramped up my workshops at my farm and dialed back my weddings. So that's to say, workshops are an amazing way to make money for your small farm, particularly if you're a small farm, and in an urban setting. Not
Yeah,
exactly.
that is really, really true. Profitability, we know it's there, especially when you just really approach it on a professional method, right? Of actually figuring out what you should charge and how it should be charged. And I think the other burning question for so many people, Jenny, that I hear from folks is, am I qualified? You know, what
Mm.
should I teach a class? Can I teach a class? So what would your words of wisdom be for folks that are wondering if they're qualified?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, first of all, you do need to have some experience in your wheelhouse before you can really go out there and teach a lot. So, I encourage people that are relatively new to make their workshops, their events, more about just an experience, a relaxing experience where people come to the farm and they're maybe going to cut some flowers and you're going to do just an incredibly simple demonstration of maybe how to harvest, or instead of doing like a really elaborate design workshop or a really intensive farming workshop, just start small. Start with a 90-minute event where people are encouraged to come, explore the farm, relax, cut some flowers, make just a simple mason jar arrangement to take home, or maybe pot up a few plants or something. Things that are just really, really basic. That's a great place to start if you yourself are still pretty new to flower farming. You're not an expert yet at the subject matter, so to speak, but you can start to get comfortable with workshopping so that you feel, positive in front of a crowd. And then you can scale up from there as your expertise comes to the forefront and you feel confident. But start with something relatively simple in the beginning.
That is such a great tip because that is such a great tip because people, especially now, right? People are so hungry, even before COVID. The
Mhm.
number one battle that I had to fight and we still fight is people want to come to the farm.
Oh yeah,
They
everybody
just,
does.
yeah, they just want to walk around and be in the environment. And I understand it, right? But of course, if you're a real business, you don't really have time unless you're like doing it as an actual event for people to do that. So that is just super good idea to maybe make your first workshops not really a workshop, perhaps make it more about an experience. But
Yeah.
my next question for you applies whether it's an experience or a workshop. And I will tell everybody this is where Jenny's attention to the business side is going to save your butt, and I'll just say that because let's talk about the hiccups of having people come to your farm. And I'm just going to read over this list of some of the things that I had as challenges that
Mm,
you must overcome if you're
right.
going to do this. Bathrooms,
Oh
parking,
yeah.
parking, the space to put them. What happens if it rains on the day of your event? Last minute changes because of that weather. Do you refund? How do you reschedule? If you're really a farmer, how do you reschedule that easily? We don't typically have available days in our schedule.
Right.
And then the biggest hiccup of all is COVID. And before you
Mm.
answer all of those, Jenny, I just want to say to folks, these hiccups are what led Jenny to actually create the business side of doing workshops into an online course. And it's called Making Workshops Work for You. And this is just a sampling of some of the type of stuff that you may not know it yet, but these are things you have to figure out. And there are definitely ways to do it and ways to not do it. So, Jenny, let's talk about the hiccups for a few minutes.
Oh, sure. Well, everything that you said has always been one of the challenges. Those are universal challenges. So, if you don't have a proper bathroom at your farm that people can use, you're going to need to get a porta potty in for the season or something like that. So these are things you do have to think about. That a challenge that you didn't have on your list, but I think is also universal, is just staffing of a workshop, like understanding the timeline of a workshop. So often I see people that are newer to this concept where they just are really hectic and haphazard about the process, and then they end up feeling really scattered at the time of their workshop. So it's like knowing you're going to need support help. So that's one of the things. Like you should have another staff member with you at the farm when you're going to do a workshop, or maybe it's your partner if you have a partner. That's something like don't try to lead them on your own, because then you try to be too many things for too many people, and it's really helpful to have support while you're doing it. And just the timeline that it takes to put a good workshop, a good event together is also something I talk about in the course, and just how you need to pace yourself to do that. Because at the end of the day, the only way people are going to come back, and that's really what you want when you set up this workshop enterprise for your farm, is you want those repeat students to come, because they are repeat customers. And any small
Yes.
business wants repeat customers because they're the easy ones. They're the ones that already know your story, have already bought into your mission, who want to support you, who understand your price point. Repeat customers, students is exactly what every small business wants. And to have people come back over and over again, like I do at my farm, I mean, we have people that have taken like 10 or 12 workshops at my farm, and some of them come back for the same workshop every year. And the reason is because it runs smoothly. There's no anxiety in this space. It's not like I'm anxious or they feel any anxiety. All they feel is just relaxed and welcoming, and look at all these flowers. And it's just a really nice experience. And you can't provide a really nice experience if you have this chaotic energy going on.
It's so true. It's kind of like being the bride at a wedding, right? It's like
Mm,
you are the one that is the center of attention because everything pivots off of you. You have got, I mean, you are so right. I mean, I can remember doing seed starting workshops here, and I think we had two or three helpers um, because there was a lot of stuff that needed to be distributed, a lot of
hmm.
help that people needed. And you want to create an experience that people don't want to leave your farm, right?
Yes,
I
they
mean,
should be lingering, even though
yes,
that does get annoying for the record.
yes,
It can be really
yes,
annoying when they
yes.
won't leave, but that means you did it right.
That is so really, really true. And I think one of the biggest hiccups that I know you face, because, you know, I haven't done on farm workshops now, I think it's been 3 years, is when the last one that I did, is you were dead in the middle of, you know, workshop central when COVID hit,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. It really knocked us for a loop, because we got the city of Philadelphia closed down on March 13th, and I already had some scheduled workshops that had already sold tickets for. By the way, this is one of the reasons I don't sell tickets more than
Right.
30 days in advance, because you never know what's going to happen in life. And so those had to get canceled, and then we were just shut down. Like we didn't know what to do, and I couldn't do workshops for almost an entire season. We did decide to bring them back at the in the late fall of 2020, when I felt more aware of what I could do to keep people safe. So we distanced everybody. We had lots of hand sanitizers, masks, but we made it work. And
Right.
it's funny how people so appreciated being able to do those experiences still. So we continued to do workshops all through 2021. And it's going to be so fun to not have to teach in a mask now come come this season, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We
Yeah.
can't count on anything, but yeah.
And so things, I think being a more seasoned person just helps to build your gut a little bit too. I mean, what
Mm,
happens? I can remember one of the last ones we did was like a morning workshop, and people were going to come, and I was going to show them kind of what you explained a minute ago. I was going to show them how to cut flowers, and then
right.
they could cut a whole bucket of flowers, and then we came inside and they made their just huge bunches of handheld bouquets. I mean, we just had such a darn blast. Well, even me as a seasoned farmer, I had some gut juice going the week before that. Are there going to be enough? Are they going to
Hmm.
perceive Are they going to
Hmm.
perceive that there's enough? Because I don't know if you do this, but I'm such an overachiever that I, in fact, felt like I had to have several buckets of flowers already cut and harvested inside just in case somebody didn't get, how hard it is
Oh
to
yeah.
harvest flowers. I mean, it's like
Oh yeah.
you and I are lightning harvesters. I
Right.
mean, people just have to decide which one they're going to cut. And I understand all that, but they're totally different. I mean, the gut juice over what would you do if it was pouring rain on the day of your
Mm.
workshop? You have to have the fortitude, I guess, to really face all that, right? And
Yeah.
being a newbie, that'd be
It's
tough.
hard. It's hard to learn how to manage that, but you do over time. And you're
Yes,
absolutely right, Lisa. Like having a couple extra buckets of flowers cut is super helpful. I mean, at my farm, most of our events at this point include like cut flowers already. Like we cut most of them for them and just say
right.
like go out in the field and you could get a couple special stems yourself if you want, because flowers that have been cut and hydrated properly and held in the
Correct.
cooler last so much longer. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we do is we mostly cut for them at this point, but it is really nice to let them go walk around and cut a few themselves. And it always stinks when it rains on a day of a workshop because it really does sort of limit the experience, but people are still so grateful. You just have to make sure you have a nice space for them to get under cover. So at my
Yes.
farm, it's a big barn. At yours, I know you have the space downstairs. And so if you are going to do this, if anybody's listening who's thinking about taking on workshops, just make sure you have covered space in case of rain. But you can continue to teach during the rain. It's the
Right.
worst workshop experience I had in terms of weather is actually sometimes I take the show on the road. And I went to Ontario, Canada, and was teaching up there at Janice's farm, Harris Flower Farm. And this crazy weather event came through that was like a mini tornado or something. We all had to get inside the cooler together. All the
Oh my.
workshop participants had to huddle in the cooler because we were under a pole barn essentially, and it was a great space except when some crazy wind came through and crazy rain. So we all got in the cooler together. That was a bonding experience. Let's say it that way.
I mean, these are the kind of things. So let's talk about those kinds of things. So, the legalities of doing this, and that's one of the
Mm,
things that I appreciate so much about the course is it just really lets people have so much more confidence, right? I mean, you got to have
mhm.
insurance, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, yeah. You got to have a really good liability policy that covers everything you could possibly think of. Be very honest with your insurance agent. Like, there's
yes,
no reason to like tiptoe around the fact that you're doing workshops. No, you want to be incredibly direct and say, I'm doing workshops. There's generally going to be this many people. They're going to become parking on my farm. They're going to handle sharp objects. Like, you got
right.
to tell them all the potentials and make sure you've got that insurance.
Isn't that so funny that I mean, I faced that in teaching the basic flower farm in school. It's like I tell people, you just got to go in there and spill your guts and tell them.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
people are like, well, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that. It's like, no, you have to paint the picture because nothing is worse than having something happen on
Oh,
your
yeah.
farm and finding out the bad way that your insurance doesn't even cover that because you were not
Yeah.
truthful, and it's not even
Right.
truthful. It's like you just don't understand how far reaching things can happen, right? So
Oh,
let's talk
yeah.
about what some of the expenses could be related to workshops beyond having, insurance, which you should already have really as a flower
Right.
farmer,
Yeah.
right?
Every business, every farmer should have insurance. So if you don't, that's step one after listening to this podcast, go get insurance.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, you've already mentioned that, if you don't have a proper restroom, you have to have a portage on, you have to have insurance, you have to have staff, and all of this stuff rolled up in a big old ball leads to proper pricing, right? I mean, which is something that you talk about, um, and would be so unique. It's like you can't tell somebody how much to charge, but you can give them the equation to consider to figure it out, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And pricing will be different in your region and so forth, but there's like anything in business and flower farming, there is the cost of goods sold. Like you cannot do this without charging at least enough to cover all the costs that go into it. And so often I see newer growers or newer businesses offer workshops at a price point that is not going to even begin to cover the cost. So they are just thinking about like, I want to price this so people will come. And
Right.
that is the fastest way to lose money, you know? So you can't price it so that people will come. You have to price it so you're actually at
Make it
least
worth your time.
maybe right, yeah, at least make it like not a charity. Like you have to at least make money,
Well,
something.
and
Yeah.
don't you think that just so many people don't even really stop to consider what their real expenses are so often? I mean, it's like, oh, well, I won't count my time. Well, that's part of your expenses, but
Right.
for,
Yeah. Right.
um,
That's the one thing I see so often is people don't account for their time at all. They price for the flowers in a workshop. They price for maybe the container and the porta john and all of that, but then they forget, oh wait, they're coming to learn from me and my expertise is even if you're relatively new, you have more knowledge about growing flowers and cutting flowers than the average home gardener. So there is a level of expertise and you need to charge for your time. If it's at like 20 bucks an hour, which is way too low for the record.
right. But I think the
Yeah.
part that folks don't really consider, Jenny, and I know that you will agree with this, you spend days getting ready for a workshop.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, holy cow. And so then that's twofold. So I mean, people just don't understand that part. You have to I mean, we all feel that need to kind of not tidy up, but things sometimes maybe that you might left undone. It's like, oh, will take care of that. But you have to make sure your farm is safe for people to walk around that are not farming people.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then while you're doing that, you're not able to generate income for your business in the way that you normally make money, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I
twofold.
talk about. Yeah, you've got to think about it as a double whammy. It's not just the fact that you have to commit more time to the workshop doing, but you're also limiting your ability to pay attention to any other sales outlets while you're taking care of the workshop. Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, that is just also true. So, Jenny, kind of give us the overview of your course. Um, so, it's called Making Workshops Work for You, and it's an on-demand workshop, meaning folks that it's available 24/7. It's not like our schools. You can purchase it at any time. And what can somebody expect to learn from that course? And it's like 4 hours long, right?
Yeah, I think it's actually almost 6 hours long, but you can watch it in pieces if you don't have that much time on your hands. It's broken into sections.
Right, right.
So it's gonna, a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, but in much greater detail, like what topics could you teach at a workshop? Like what kind of things, can be the focus of a workshop, how to prepare the space. If you don't have space, here's some ideas for where you could go take the show on the road and teach at other places and partner with other businesses to host workshops in their spaces. Pricing is a big one. I go into deep detail about that because that is the thing that drove me to want to teach this workshop is because I knew that there were lots of people doing workshops, but we're not pricing in a way that was ever going to make them money and it would just be draining. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to provide people a formula for that. And then just some ideas about how to prepare in advance, how to create this experience that is very positive for your students so that they come back over and over again. So all the things we've been talking about in this podcast, but in much greater detail with handouts and slides and demo pieces and so forth. So yeah.
And I think, isn't there even a bonus session that you did during the midst of the first year breakout of the pandemic, right? About
Mm.
how to kind of cover your bases on that, I think, too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of chit chat about COVID, but hopefully with time and space, we'll not have to worry about that quite so much. But definitely, there's some tips for that too.
So, what else can we say about workshops? And there's such a vast opportunity that I see. When I first started, I felt this real need to do these big, really long workshops. I mean, we did 2-day boot
Mm.
camps.
Oh
We
gosh,
said,
those are the worst. I have to say, you know what? If we want to talk about a hiccup, one of the things that I used to do, just like you, was multi-day events. And
Yes.
oh, there is nothing more draining than those. And I used to do them all the time. And I thought that I needed to do that to entice people to come,
Yep,
to get
exactly.
people to come from further away or just to make it feel like it was valuable enough or whatever. And that was a lack of self-esteem, frankly. I mean, I think when you
Yeah.
overcompensate with extra time with students, then you are likely trying to like help yourself feel better.
That
And that's something
you
to
nailed
avoid.
it, Jenny. You nailed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And you as a teacher are not going to provide more value over many, many, many hours or days. That is not how it works. You actually provide your best value in something like the first 20% of your time with a group of, say, talk about this if you're consulting, you end up delivering the most value to your client in the first 20% of your time with the client when you do consulting, because that's when you can really you sort of nail it right then. And then after that, it's all kind of just like hand holding and there's value, but it's like it
Right.
diminishes over time. So shorter workshops actually give you a better opportunity to provide value for your students and then also an incentive for them to come back because there's just only so much bandwidth you as a teacher and they as a student have to give to any one thing. And so keeping them shorter actually works out a lot better.
Yeah, I think I totally and completely agree with you. Bobo and I were just talking about this. I mean, oh my goodness, we fed them breakfast and lunch.
Oh my, yep.
And we had like 25 people here and
Yeah.
we cooked. Should I say that,
You
Jen?
cooked?
Yeah.
No.
So Bobo is a chef, but it's still, I mean, she
Oh,
took over my house. I mean, so it was, people loved it. I mean, it
yeah,
was delicious and
yeah,
fun, but
yeah.
you're so right. We could have actually done a morning and lunch and gone
Right.
and
Yeah.
probably been just as much value because that is the other thing that I think that for you and I to say this publicly, it's like that was our lack of confidence in
hmm
ourselves as teachers that we had to give more time instead of concentrating
hmm
and that is, and so folks, you do not have to like make it long and lengthy to justify. And so Jenny, I thank you so much for talking to me about this. I mean,
Oh,
I just
sure.
I mean, we were so pleased to publish your course because I totally agree with you. I think this is a great, I don't think, I mean, you know me, I got my hands in so many different pies. I think those of us that have that entrepreneurial spirit that really want to be involved in the local flower scene, whether it means you're farming 100%, you don't have to farm 100%. You can
hmm
farm 80% and do workshops 20 or whatever. You know, there's options. And I just think that you kind of laying out the nitty gritty of the business side of this is really, really helpful. And so I
And I
thank you.
will I will say, just if I can throw one more thing in there real quick, is that
Sure.
the other value of workshops that I didn't necessarily understand quite as much until COVID is how much community building they provide. So if you're a newer, younger business and you haven't quite found your like quote unquote community yet, your tribe, you can do that through presenting workshops at your farm. It will draw people to you and they will coalesce around you and it'll provide community for you. And it is also going to provide community for them. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's great to get paid, but wow, there is nothing more fulfilling than creating a sense of community around your farm. And it's that energy, it's that emotion that is going to carry you through crazy things like COVID when they come along. So that's the other value of workshops.
That is so true. And the other thing I just want to remind everybody of again that you mentioned earlier, if you are a newer business and you're not feeling the expert level yet, to create an experience. I mean, it's kind of like if you've become a great party giver, it's the same thing. It's not a
Yeah.
party, but you can follow certain steps and just
hmm
really make a great experience. And that's a great opportunity also. And I think now more than ever,
Yeah.
that experiences is where people are really, really hungry for, as you mentioned earlier. So Jenny, thank you so much for chatting with me about this. And
Oh, sure.
yeah.
It's always fun. I could always
Yeah.
talk to you for like hours a day. So it's my treat.
All right, friends, till we meet again. See you sometime soon, Jennie Love.
Bye, Lisa.
All right, friends. I mean, have we planted some seeds, some thought, some goals, maybe some, oh my goodness, I better go back and look at that again. I just totally love kind of showing you guys yet another opportunity, another piece of this flower farming pie that you can build a flower farming enterprise. And if you go about it as a professional, which is what, is a big focus for me and is for Jennie. That's one of the major things that she and I both share is, if you're going to do it right so you can then build on the strong foundation that you have built. So friends, down below this podcast in the show notes, I, of course, will have all the connections to Jennie and her business, Love and Fresh Flowers, that's located in Philly, her website, her social media connections, as well as her podcast, which is called No-Till Flowers, which is totally awesome. And I'll put links to that and links of other mentions. Of course, a link to her course, Making Workshops Work for You. And friends, I'm just loving building this library of podcasts that not only can help you build a flower-based business, but to give other people inspiration of things that they can pursue. And as well as, we have a lot of stalkers that are home gardeners, and we love that, y'all. We love that there's people that want to grow like farmers, that want to maybe are dreaming about becoming a flower farmer. Y'all, we are here for you. So I hope to connect with you over at thegardenersworkshop.com as well as on my social media links, and you'll find it all down below. Till we meet again, friends. Ciao.